So, welcome everybody. This is our last official meeting for Bhagavad Gita as it is. We'll talk about that later, but first I was thinking, this is supposed to be a review of the first 5 or 6 chapters. And I was reading through the chapters and, just the verses. And I was wondering how to do this. And it dawned on me after I read them all that actually chapter 2 is so amazing. And it does summarize the whole Bhagavad Gita. And because that chapter is called Contents of the Gita Summarized. And I thought, this chapter is so perfect. I've actually made up my mind that I'm going to start reading this chapter every day. I copied the verses down, just the verses, and I'm going to start reading them every day. Because every day I have to remember what Krishna is saying. I keep forgetting. So today there are, Corey is still connecting to audio. Seems to be having a little difficulty. We will start, and we'll start with, everyone should just turn on their sound so that we don't have to wait. We can just read through. So we're going to follow this order. I will read a verse, and then Sanjeev should be the husband first. I'm not very Vedic. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Jade,
Kali, it's okay.
Anu, Jade, Raj, Corey. Corey, can you turn on Raj, can you turn on your sound?
Okay.
Why is my phone still ringing? I turned it off. Okay, so we're going to start. Bhagavad Gita as it is, translations and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion and very sorrowful, his eyes brimming with tears, Madhusudan Krishna spoke the following words. Sanjeev?
Yes. Oh, I will read the next one. Okay. We are going straight. We are not doing the purport, right? We are going straight there. Okay.
Just the verses, yes.
Great. So, am I to read from the screen or from the book?
Doesn't matter.
Maybe.
You can read from the screen or the book, whichever is more convenient for you.
Okay, great. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy."
Anu?
O son of Partha, do not yield to this degrading importance. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of the heart and arise, O chastier of the enemy.
Jade?
Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship?
Raj?
It is better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though they are avaricious, they are nonetheless superiors. If they are killed, our spoils will be tainted with blood.
Corey? I think Corey is having difficulty connecting.
Yeah, I think he's trying to connect, but he's not.
Right, so Corey, I hope you can hear. That's okay. When you connect, you can start reading. If you can't connect, you just read along with us. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. The sons of Dhritarashtra, whom if we killed, we should not dare to live, are now standing before us on this battlefield.
Now
Sanjeev?
I'm confused about my duty, and I have lost all composure because of weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me clearly what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered onto you. Please instruct me.
Anu?
I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I am not be able to destroy it even if I win an unraveled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like that of the demigods in the heaven.
Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna's chastiers of enemies told Krishna, chastiser of enemies told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent.
O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to grief-stricken Arjuna.
The blessed Lord said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead.
Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be.
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change.
O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They rise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
I'm sorry, I guess I didn't put the whole verse there.
Yeah, I think. Okay.
Raj?
O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation.
Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and if of the existent there is no cessation. This seers have concluded by studying the nature of both.
Know that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul.
Oh, I'm sorry, Anu.
Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata.
Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slays not nor is slain.
For the soul, there is never birth nor death, nor having once been, does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain.
Oh, Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal and immutable, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill.
As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones.
The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, no moistened by water, no withered by the wind.
This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternal the same.
It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body.
If, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, Almighty Armed.
All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So, what need is there for lamentation?
All created, O descent of Bharata, he who dwells in the body is eternal and can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any creature.
Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all.
Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And so there is no need for hesitation.
O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets.
If, however, you do not fight this religious war, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter.
People will always speak of your infamy, and for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death.
The great general who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you a coward.
Your
enemies
enemy, I'm sorry, Raj,
Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you?
O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up and fight with determination.
Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by doing so, you shall never incur sin.
Thus far, I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga, whereby one works without fruitive result. O son of Partha, when you act by such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of works.
In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on the path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear.
Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched.
Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this.
In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place.
The Vedas mainly deal with the subject of three modes of material nature. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self.
All purposes that are served by the small pond can at once be served by the great reservoirs of water. Similarly, all the purpose of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them.
You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the cause of result of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty.
Be steadfast in yoga, O Arjuna. Perform your duty and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind is called yoga.
O Dhananjaya, rid yourself of all fruitative activities by devotional service and surrender fully to that consciousness. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers.
A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions, even in this life. Therefore, strive, O Yoga, O Arjuna, which is the art of all work.
The wise engage in devotional service, take refuge in the Lord, and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way, they can attain the state beyond all miseries.
When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard.
When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness.
Arjuna said, "What are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk?"
The blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness.
One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind.
He who is without attachment, who does not rejoice when he obtains good, nor lament when he obtains evil, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge.
One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge.
The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness.
The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjun, that they forcefully carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them.
One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence.
While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises.
From anger, delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool.
One who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord and thus become free from all attachment and aversion.
For one who is so situated in the divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady.
One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor a steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace?
As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence.
Therefore, almighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence.
What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-control. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage.
A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flows of desire that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled, but it's always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires.
A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desire, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace.
That is the way of spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. Being so situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. And
So, Krishna and his disciple Arjuna, Srila Prabhupada and his loving disciples. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for giving us this wonderful translation of Bhagavad Gita. As we were, hold on, I have to stop share. Okay, I've got it. So Corey, you have not been able to connect to audio the whole time, and I've been watching your endeavor, and Krishna is seeing even more. So
Corey,
your endeavor is extremely valuable. probably even more valuable than all of us who are actually doing it. So even though we're not able to hear you, you're actually very much present with us. I noticed
Kori
as we
Prabhu,
were, this is such an amazing chapter because for most of us, controlling our senses, controlling the mind, not letting the mind, not getting carried away with the dictates of the mind, with the dictates of the senses, is so important in our process of Krishna consciousness. It's important with everything because if the mind is not controlled, if the mind is not, and control actually means engaged in Krishna service, then actually we can't chant Hare Krishna properly, we won't read, we won't even desire to give up whatever sense gratification we can't give up. So this is a very, very, very important chapter to remember. And I really encourage you, all of you, if you can't read it every day, to read it frequently. And Krishna refers in one of the verses to the regulated principles of freedom. This is a very interesting concept, especially in this Kali Yuga that we're living in now. The idea of regulated principles of freedom is completely foreign to anything anyone can think of, most people can think of. For most people, freedom means there's no regulation. I'm on holiday. I have no regulation. I can do whatever I want. So most people equate freedom to being able to do whatever we want. And so we see that this actually leads to so much degradation, and it doesn't lead to freedom, because you can see in people who don't even follow basic moral values, or even just have a basic regulation in their life, they end up in actually a very miserable condition. Their health deteriorates, their friends and family, their relationships with their friends and family become very negative. Everything becomes very, very bad. And you'll often see that people who are not in any way following any regulated principles, how quickly they can go downhill. So many years ago, I was in New York. We had a preaching center there. And I was volunteering at a local soup kitchen. I was volunteering as a counselor in a local soup kitchen. And everyone I spoke to, maybe one or two, not the case. But for most of them, they didn't come from a situation, they weren't born on the street. They came from families. Many of them came from good jobs. Many of them had good education. Many of them fulfilled a lot of responsible, were very responsible citizens. And then, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one of the senses carries you away, and we very quickly can become degraded. So this is true in material life. So in spiritual life, we actually have to be even more careful. So these regulated principles of freedom, we should appreciate them, and we should know their purpose. Krishna consciousness is not a matter of don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. That's a sin. You're a bad person. Go on and on and on like that. No, these are regulated principles of freedom. We want these so that we can become free of the material entanglement. So a devotee actually has a very, very different attitude to, no gambling, no meat eating, no illicit sex, and no intoxication. Sounds like a lot of no's, but those are the regulated principles of freedom. They will free us from the material bondage. So enough of my speaking. It's your turn. Who wants to start? Shall we follow the same order and start with Sanjeev? Sanjeev, the question basically is, we've been through 6
Right.
chapters
Yep.
of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
How has this changed? How has this changed your life?
I
Or
think
not changed?
I think the way I am seeing this is that there was not a time before I joined this class that I did not feel that this is not the right place to be. I always felt that this is the right place to be, but some sort of a discipline in doing, uh, in practicing or reading the holy book, it endorses and keeps us in proximity and in binding with those principles that you were talking about all this while, is that we don't get strayed away and we don't get too far from it. So whether it's the association of people who are having the same value system, or reading this holy book, it brings that binding to us on a consistent basis. It reinforces the thought process.
Wonderful, Sanjeev.
And of course, not to forget to mention that every time you come and read the same verse, you learn it more and you learn it in a deeper way.
Yeah.
So that is my experience in the last many classes that we've had. Yes. And like Anu mentioned, that it's kind of a little bit of a sad moment that we will have to take a little pause here and then restart here. So we were getting into that mode of discipline and also practicing a little bit more. So I mean, I have been chanting more regularly than before, and that has been a positive drift for me.
Wonderful. Actually, by reading, when we read, we are actually associating with Krishna, and we're associating with all of Krishna's devotees. They may not all be reading at the same exact minute that you're reading, but we are reading the same words, and we're associating with Srila Prabhupada. And as Srila Prabhupada said, you chant Hare Krishna, and I chant Hare Krishna, and we are all packed up tight together. So it's the same with Bhagavad Gita. You read Bhagavad Gita, I read Bhagavad Gita, we're all packed up tight together in a spiritual association. We're never really alone.
When we spent a few months in Sharanagati year before last, I think my wife mentioned about this sense of vibe that existed in the valley because so many people were chanting at the same time. So we felt that it was kind of, there was a separate sense of energy that existed in that place that doesn't exist outside. I don't know whether it's taking us to the material world or what is happening, but so much chanting going on there has that blessing of positive energy.
You felt it. Very good. Anu.
Two things. One is that I think the best feeling that I have is reading Bhagavad Gita in association with all of us, and that sort of gives me happiness because it's not about who knows how much, who's ahead, who's behind. It's just about that we are in that moment talking about Krishna. So that makes me feel very happy, and that's why I really look forward to the class. And I'm sad. Um, the second is a question, more of a reflection, is that we we also read just now how about controlling the senses and the mind, and I, I do not know if I'm right in expressing myself. I came to a point where I said, maybe in this lifetime I'll never be there in controlling, my senses and mind. But what I can control is I can purify my thoughts and actions and remind myself every day, any action that I am performing, how can I purify that? Even a simple thought for someone, it's like you just want to correct yourself every time. What you say, you speak, you think, and just so that you just offer that to Krishna, you just start purifying your actions. That's all. It's a journey.
It is a journey, Anu, and you said I don't know in this lifetime if I'm going to make it. None of us know. We're depending on Krishna. We're giving it our best. But even just knowing, as we know, just knowing I'm not controlling my mind and my senses, that's a lot of spiritual advancement. Because most people are not even aware I'm not controlling my mind and my senses. They're not even aware of that. And this is actually a very important beginning, that we become aware that we're not controlling our mind and senses. And becoming aware is not, I just talked about this and I'm repeating again. I guess it's because I came from a very strong Catholic background where, we committed sin and we had to go to confession. And I remember being 5 years old and we had to go to confession. And I remember I didn't know what I was going to say. I was not 5, I was 6. I didn't know what I was going to say, I was supposed to think of something I did wrong, and then but I didn't know. So we're not talking about that. We're talking here about a very, very positive process. And you see in this chapter, and you see throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes, he gives injunctions, don't do this, but it's done in a very positive way, in a very positive direction. And ultimately, Krishna tells Arjuna, now you deliberate on this fully and make your decision. So it's a very positive personal decision that every spirit soul makes. Jade, what do you want to share?
I have enjoyed this class so much. I have deeply appreciated everybody's association. I don't have anybody in my life that even knows about Krishna, let alone like wants to delve into these subjects. So I had this really deep longing in my heart. Let me have someone to talk about Krishna with. So I've been so grateful for that opportunity. And I've learned so much through a lot of self-reflection. It's kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster. Sometimes I'm on a spiritual high and I'm like, I got this and I'm chanting. And then sometimes I'm just like, I have a dumpster of a heart and mind. There's so much garbage in there, but I feel so inspired, and it's worth the endeavor.
It certainly is. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that there is no loss and diminution. Every endeavor, there's no loss. This is the one thing we do in our life that we're guaranteed there will be no loss. Before the class, I was talking with Sanjeev about an Air India ticket where they owed me. They were supposed to reimburse me. I wasn't sure if they were going to do that. It was looking very bad. Finally, they did. And Sanjeev said, "Oh, you're very lucky." So there very easily could be a loss there. But on the spiritual platform, there is no loss or diminution. There is none. I can give an example in my own life. I came to Krishna consciousness in 1972, was initiated in 73. And then unfortunately in 1998, my husband and I, we left. We left Krishna consciousness for a number of years. And then when we came back, there was no loss or diminution. I could experience it. It just was like, if you have a very good friend and you haven't seen that very good friend for 10 years, when you see that very good friend again, it's not like it's like the 10 years didn't exist. You'll sit down together and you'll talk as if those 10 years never happened. So Krishna consciousness is like that. Krishna doesn't forget, whether in this life or even if we don't complete the process in this life, we will have that opportunity again. And we can see so many children that are born in the movement. They're just naturally so Krishna conscious. It's really amazing. You know when you speak to them. They're like little sadhus in little 5-year-old bodies, You know that they're continuing from previous life. It's very inspiring. Raj.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's especially, the process is all beautiful. It's relaxing. It makes you more purified. Even with your own wife and kids. You respect them more because the thing is you connect Krishna with everything. So when I see now my wife and kids and everybody around me, actually, workers around me, my friends, neighbors, I see all of them as gifts from Krishna. So it's difficult to treat them bad when they are a gift from Krishna. And yeah, and the four principles that we have are beautiful principles, actually, because no meat eating just gives you so much compassion. Before, 2 years ago, I was meat eating, and you would eat for the taste of tongue, but you don't realize that you're killing someone for that taste of tongue. So there is no compassion in you, and with no compassion, you actually are a bad heart. You can be rude on your own family because you're eating somebody else's family. In the end of the day, if somebody has to come to me and ask me, "Hey, can I have a leg piece of your son?" I won't be very, very comfortable to give him that. So how can we eat somebody else's kids? Because if you eat the chicken, it's came from some mother. So it's a very beautiful principle that we have. Second one, gambling. Of course, you lie when you gamble in a general condition. So it brings lies away from you, and you are more truthful towards the people in front of you. When you're doing business, many times you have to say lies. But now, even if I have to lose, I just say truth, and that's about it. But trust me, that brings, after a little while, people more closer to you, because they know whatever he's saying, this is what he is. He's not making up anything. And this is truth. I have experienced this in a couple of years. Intoxication, of course, when you are intoxicated, you don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know what you're expecting from your own wife. Maybe you have lusty desires because you're just an idiot, because it's not you, it's that liquor in you, which is no, this is very true. It's You don't have respect for your own people, not to talk about the third persons. So intoxication is as bad as that, because you don't have your mind in control. Not to speak about controlling the mind forcefully and waking up early, but you don't have, you're just being idiot when you are intoxicated. So that's another beautiful thing. And you feel clear inside when you're not intoxicated. You're always awake and respectful to everyone. And the the relations outside of marriage are probably one of the main reasons why the marriages are being broken in Western world. But now even back in India, there is so many divorces because of that, because everybody wants to have that pleasure outside. But this is beauty of Krishna consciousness. When you see that wife in front of you or that husband in front of you is gift of Krishna, it's impossible to go somewhere else and find that pleasure in somebody else wife or somebody else husband, because pleasure starts from your own home. It's Krishna that gave you that family. It's not by chance that I married this girl or you married somebody. It was written in your fate. So Krishna gave you that. So just respect them and love your family. All starts from family. If you're not loving your family and you're trying to go out and have that happiness, even in Sharnagati, let's say I say, okay, I'll leave my wife and go in Sharnagati or Vrindavan or Mayapur, I don't think Krishna will be happy. He'll be actually beating me up in some sense, because
Raj, we lost you. Oh, now you're back.
Yeah. Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, it's beautiful. The process is beautiful, of course. And then when you know Krishna is in heart of everyone, I mean to say everyone, not only devotees. He's in heart of non-devotee, he's in heart of a Muslim, he's in heart of a Christian, everyone. So how can you treat that person bad? Because he's in your heart, he's in his heart too. So it's difficult to treat anybody bad. And people realize this change in you. Don't think that you are realizing yourself, but people in front of you realize that there is some change. So it's beautiful, actually. It's I'm very young to make big comments, but it has changed my life very big time. Like my family calls me sadhu because I wake up at 5 a.m. and they tell me, my mom sometime actually she's angry with me because once I was not feeling well and I wake up at 5 o'clock for Mangal Arati, because I wake up every morning at 5. He said, you don't have to wake up at 5. But I said, I won't feel better all day, so I have to get darshan. So little tapasya is good for you too, little austerity is good for you too, because it gives you discipline and it's blissful. Actually, when they say Krishna reciprocates, it is true. Whatever you do, he reciprocates. You give him time, he is giving you time. You love him, he loves you. You hate him, he will hate you, of course. But Krishna reciprocates. It's up to you what you are up to. What is your intention? Your intention, your consciousness is very important, and he is reciprocating. Honestly speaking, he's there listening to us. Uh, we are still on a. I am still on a platform where probably I'm not fully surrendered to Krishna 100%. I still think I eat because I work. One day, hopefully, that day will come when I will think I'm eating because of Krishna. I'm not in that mood 100% right now, and which is not good. But I will hopefully come to that platform one day. Yeah, it's beautiful. It has been a beautiful journey with all of you guys too, and studying, and it gives you more discipline too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Raj. You were saying, you were going through the regulative principles and you talked about gambling. And it reminds me of many years ago, I was in New York and we were going to New Jersey to this big sports arena where there's football games and hockey games. And there's also, and we were distributing books in the parking lot to the people coming in. And I was told you know, we're actually having to, the person who drove us there said, I'm going to be a little bit late picking you up. So you should go over to the where the races are. They had this place of dog races. Was it horse? No, it was horse races. And from there, you can get a bus back into New York. And so I said, okay, no problem. I knew how to get there. So I went over when I was done, you know, what I was supposed to do. And here I am in this place of gambling, right? All these people are gambling on horses and they bet. Some of them bet a lot of money on these horses. And I walk in and I see all these people, you know, and their faces are glued to these TV screens and they're watching the races going on. And they're all looking. They're all standing there and they're all looking, and you can see it's like total anxiety. There's so much anxiety in the room. It's almost visible, you know, it's almost like an object that you can see. So I thought, oh, this is crazy. I have to wait 20 minutes for the bus. I'm going to go outside and watch the horses because it's kind of beautiful to see horses racing. So I thought I'll go outside and watch the horses. And I went out there and there was no one there. Well, practically no one was actually watching the race. They were all inside with their faces glued to the TV because there's so much anxiousness. Gambling creates so much anxiety that they couldn't even begin to just enjoy the race for a few minutes. So, you know, these regulative principles of freedom, they don't just give us freedom on a material platform, and they do. Freedom from illicit sex. There's so many diseases from illicit sex. And there's so much, you know, children that are suffering because of illicit sex. All of the regulative principles of meat eating, even if you don't agree with meat eating is so unhealthy, and so many diseases come from that. So we're very, very fortunate on so many levels that we have been given these regulated principles of freedom. So it's almost 8:30 now. And I just wanted to say that to everybody that, you know, I've been talking to Damodar Prabhu and Balakrishna Prabhu, and, you know, we've actually enjoyed these sessions also. We also do want to begin formally in September, continuing Bhagavad Gita and other classes. But we were thinking that we should develop a format where we can more informally get together and continue these discussions. Not that it would be just a chat group. We don't want just a chat group. We could base our meetings maybe on the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam or something like that, you know, not a matter of study, but we could read it together. Many devotees do that, like here in Mayapur. I get together on Thursday evening with a couple of devotees and we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, just like they do in Sharanagati on Wednesday night. And we read, and then when a comment comes to mind, then someone will comment, someone will ask a question. I don't understand, what is Prabhupada saying, or what is that verse saying? And so we discuss like that. So I'm going to, you know, I've had a hard time getting a hold of Damodar and Balakrishna because they just started the Sunday feast program again. And I think it took all their endeavor last week to get that going. So, but in the next few days, I will talk to them and we will set that up, and I will get a definite date for a retreat day. And I'll be, you know, in the next week or so, I'll be getting back to all of you, and no obligation on anyone's part. There's no obligation for you to be here today anyway, but even less we can get together when you can, and we can continue talking about Krishna, because that's where the nectar is, right? We all know that. Jade is smiling from ear to ear. Corey, I really wish you could have joined us more. It's amazing to look at that picture of Hanuman. I'm
Corey
beginning
cannot
to
hear
think
us.
that maybe you look like Hanuman a little bit. I'm forgetting a little bit. Don't you think Corey looks like Hanuman a little bit? At least this particular deity of Hanuman. Anyway, my humble obeisances to all of you. Thank you so much for your association. And this is not the end. This is just a time of change. Okay? Hare Krishna. Haribo Sanjeev. Anu.
Hare Krishna.
Bo.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Corey,
Hare
Haribo,
Krishna.
Haribo.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Sanjeev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.